In a world where Big Pharma writes the script, it's time to believe. Biohack. Become.
We're here to explore the truth about healing that exists outside the broken medical system, to give you the knowledge, the community, and the strategies you need to become the hero of your own health story.
Your guide is a biohacking entrepreneur, a near-death survivor, and a cancer warrior, navigating his own healing journey. Founder of Biohackingville, Exodus Strong and QE Strong. Your host, Rob Renee. This is Biohackingville, where the medical system has failed us. One man is leading the rebellion to reclaim.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Biohackingville podcast. We have Dr. Will Haas here today. I'm so excited to have him. What an amazing joy we have to listen to him and what he's doing. Hey, Will, how are you? Thanks for being here.
Yeah, wonderful, Rob. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here and explore our conversation around kind of pain, but wherever else this world of biohacking takes us and conversations go.
Yeah, sounds fantastic. Just looking at your background and checking out your website, I'm like, wow, this guy does a lot of things. It's so awesome what you do. So why don't you explain just to the community? They just listen to an overview of you, but I want people to hear it from you. Tell us more about yourself.
Yeah. So I think by definition, board certified integrative medicine specialist that kind of really focuses a lot on cellular health and healing. Most of my journey really goes back to a story when I was an early teenager. I was really fascinated to date myself a little bit. It actually goes back to watching the Atlanta Olympics and watching Michael Johnson just crush and set new world records in the 200 and 400 meter runs. Just blown away about the potential of the human body. And as you and I were speaking just a little bit earlier, right, the human body has this amazing capacity to achieve great feats, but also to heal itself. And so coming from this place where I was an athlete, but also intrigued in science and optimization, health, and human performance, kind of this idea that the body has an innate capacity to heal itself when provided the right environment. And the only place early in my professional career that I could find that spoke to that was actually the field of integrative medicine. My mentor, Dr. Andrew Weil. So that's where I started to gravitate towards in my curiosity and interest in optimization of health and human performance, because medicine wasn't about that at all. It was about managing chronic disease. And so it's kind of how I got myself into the field of integrative medicine and really fell in love with that approach. My mentor would say it's really not about integrative medicine. It's really just the way medicine should be practiced. But here we are.
Yeah, I love that, because it's just a pleasure to find people like you, because I've been doing a ton of research on just the medical industry itself and how it got changed. And it's just, wow, there's so many things that have gone wrong because we're really not treating people like you specifically said. We need to treat people as an individual. And God did design this body so incredibly cool that it's designed to heal itself, but if you give it the right things. And so the neat thing is that you've been specializing in that. So I'm excited to dig in and under the covers and find out how and why, because I think those are going to be questions a lot of people are asking is, okay, great, you do this, but what's it going to do for me? So I'm excited about that. One of the things we talked about was pain, right? You mentioned that you've been helping people with that as well as a lot of other things, but let's just talk about that specifically. How do you help people with pain?
Yeah, so I believe when it comes to things like pain or other areas of medicine that you alluded that have gone off track in conventional medicine is going beyond symptom management, right? And really focusing on fixing the systems underneath that have gone awry. And a lot of times there's some commonalities, there's some common threads there. Controlling inflammation, energy production, and tissue repair. And those are some of the things at a cellular level I spend more of my time as an integrative regenerative medicine practitioner focusing on. And it's what I've turned into and dubbed my Biogenesis Method. It's 3 core pathways focusing on detox, redox, and repair of the cells. I will sometimes give an analogy with my patients of rebuilding a house. You have to clear debris, you have to restore the power, and then you can rebuild. Because pain is rarely about just the damaged tissue. It's about how the body is functioning at the cellular level.
And pain, it's just an indicator of something that's gone awry. Hey, that you have pain in your knee, not necessarily because there's pain in your knee, it's because something caused that pain. And the problem that most people do is they go, apply something to put on it and to say, oh, my knee hurts, I'm going to apply some ice on it, and then they're good. They don't try to fix the underlying issue of why is it that there in the first place, and it may have nothing to do with your knee area, even though that's where the pain is manifesting.
Exactly.
Excited to learn. You said those three things, so let's explain those three things real quick. I'd love that. Let's dig into the first one. What was it? The three areas you mentioned.
Yeah, so the first pillar would be detox, removing toxins and waste so you can actually start that healing process.
Okay. So detoxing is, do you do like liver cleanses, or do you just detox the entire body? How do you when you say detox, what do you mean by detox?
Yeah, it's like I'm glad that's where you're right. Or at least that's where people's head thought, right? We got to do like a celery juice cleanse, or there's so much more to that. And yeah, I think if we go back to what I was mentioning, although I have a strong focus on cellular health now, but from an integrative thought process, it's not just the toxins that enter the body, right? They're now becoming much more aware of environmental toxins around us, right? Yeah. Heavy metals, plastics, or mold, right? But it can also be, on the flip side, it can be negative intrusive thoughts that start to build in your psyche, right? And like, to me, those are the sorts of things that you have to detox as well. So you don't want to lose sight of that piece, especially with this kind of the faith-based approach. And where does faith fit in to help you process those fears, anxieties, and worries? Because those need to be addressed and detoxed from the psyche, if you will, too. But to your question, back on the kind of a cellular level, I think through one patient comes to mind. I had a 40-year-old female who had some chronic neck pain despite doing PT, right? So we did the dry needling, did shockwave therapy, and even went as far as to do PRP, platelet-rich plasma, and still no improvement. But when we peeled the layers back, the diet was filled with processed foods. Right? There was unaddressed methylation defects. I know very common for people now to be more familiar with MTFR gene mutations and what impact that has on the body. And it wasn't until you're able to start to address some of those issues could you really start to move the needle on the chronic neck pain. And that can come with food, starting with kind of food as medicine.
Yeah, I love that, because that's really where I started in my just journey as a young athlete. Learned how to being a runner. I was a distance runner, so it was like I read a book called Eat to Win way back in the day.
Yes,
that book was amazing, because it was like, oh my gosh, if I fuel my body, I have more energy at the end of the race, and my competitors didn't. And
absolutely,
it made a huge difference. I always lean back on that, saying, man, God taught me that way back when I was young. I wish I would have done a better job of listening to it through my life, but it's fun now because I've been really focused on health the last 5 or 6 years. This is so much fun that literally we are what we eat, right? And so that's hilarious, not hilarious, but it's like very interesting. That woman, ultra processed food is everywhere. 70% of our food supply is ultra processed food. We got to get back to closer to the farm and organic foods to help our bodies do what it naturally does. I think that's intriguing.
And they sneak sugars into. That's no secret, and that's top of mind everywhere now. But I think what we forget is a lot of the health organizations, the Heart Association, they pegged the total added sugar intake for males and females should be 25 and 35 grams max. That's really hard to hit if you're not paying attention to food labels and eating anything that doesn't come directly from the earth.
I know exactly. You take that one latte in the morning with a couple of pumps, or like Starbucks does 5 pumps, right? Of
already done. Yeah, really your limit for the day.
Yeah, you're done. They're just sorry you can't eat the rest of the day.
Yeah.
But it's just common. It's every single thing you look at, it's there. And I think we as a society are starting to wake up to that, thank God. But at the same time, there's lots and lots of people who aren't. So we still need to talk about it. We need to educate people that, hey, you need to be very cautious of this ultra processed food, because there is a lot of junk in those, and the nutrients aren't enough inside those. So you need to, a lot of times, look around as how are you going to get those nutrients in your body.
And being smart about those too, right? So what foods are we going to choose to help support the detox process, right? So you have to detox and remove the harmful stuff, but what beneficial stuff can we add? So cruciferous vegetables, right? Your broccoli and kale and Brussels sprouts have been known to help boost the second phase of liver detoxification, right? So we don't need necessarily just celery cleanses, right? Just eating healthy cruciferous vegetables can support the second phase of the natural detoxification enzymes in the liver.
Yeah.
On the flip side, you have sulfur-rich containing foods, things like garlic and onions and eggs. They help with producing a compound called glutathione. which is your body's master antioxidant. It helps naturally reduce oxidative stress and recycle other antioxidants and support liver detoxification. So you can get really kind of wise with some of the foods that you're trying to target and introduce into the body.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. So there's a good topic of detoxing, right? And then what was the second pillar?
So we kind of get into what I call redox, right? So balancing oxidative stress so you can eventually then do the repair, right? So we got to clear that debris and inflammation that's holding back, and then we can focus on recharging power plants, or AKA the mitochondria, the cells that produce ATP, or our currency of energy. And that's really where the redox pillar kind of comes in, balancing that oxidative stress that breaks the cell down with the reduction process that helps build them back up.
Got it. How do you typically help people with that process? Is that supplementation, or is it what else do you do to help people do that piece?
There's a couple tools in that toolbox that you can choose to work with. So supplementation, to your point, I think a fantastic one there that's fairly approachable and easy to start with would be CoQ10, or a form of that called ubiquinol, which is kind of the better absorbed form. And it's a bit of a jumper cable for your mitochondria, if you will. It's important for that ATP production, right? And that's going to then very essential for tissue healing and pain recovery, because that's a very energy intensive process, right? So if your cells aren't kicking out energy, how are we going to do the healing and repair? So that's one tool that will kind of come to mind, an easy approach. I think you'll see some other people in the biohacking community talk about things like NAD or its precursor NR, nicotinamide riboside. So going in to give you the precursors to kind of help make the ATP in the mitochondria. So those will be some other things that you will commonly see in that bucket of supplements to supporting redox or mitochondrial health.
Very good.
Some other cool ones that I'll use in my clinic will be low-level laser therapy. Okay. So think of that kind of like your infrared light therapy on steroids a little bit. Right?
Really?
So
okay.
Much more kind of concentrated, targeted, deeper penetration of these wavelengths of light.
Nice. Okay.
That can then stimulate the mitochondria, specifically a portion of the mitochondria called cytochrome C. You're just one of the gatekeepers, if you will, to make more ATP. So it's a fantastic tool. Usually you'll find those in some of the biohacking centers, commonly popularized by chiropractors. You'll find those in chiropractor offices quite frequently. But then you can do the red light panels at home. Laser is just a more powerful tool that I use in my office.
Yeah, that makes sense. What is the laser called something, or what is it? Just laser therapy?
Usually just you're looking or searching for low level laser. Okay. LLT is usually what you're searching for. There's different companies that make those sorts of lasers. So
do you target it to the specific area that's the problem, or do you treat the whole body?
Great question. It's a bit of a combination approach, right? So the way I was taught to use the laser is not only locally, but where is that nerve root kind of starting, right? So you may treat the knee, but then you may treat kind of part of the spine where some of the innervation to that knee comes from. So that's how you think about kind of a bit of a two-prong approach with using that laser.
Nice. I love it. So now we've got
another tool that's going to be popular. We'll talk about here in a second, but can spill over into all of those those kind of pillars would be peptides.
Right? Okay.
So one, I think a less known one, especially when we think about redoxing the cell or creating this kind of mitochondrial protection, would be SS31. I describe that kind of like a Kevlar vest for the mitochondria. It basically shields and restores it at the same time. It protects the outer layer of the mitochondria. For this more sciencey people, something called cardiolipin. It's basically an outer protection layer to the mitochondria. So you're protecting that from damage to the mitochondria with the help of this peptide. Can do a better job of producing that energy again, especially in nerve and muscle cells, which can succumb to pain quite easily.
Very good. And then peptides, would you use that in the first pillar ever to do the detoxing? Or
so like on detox, I think more about detoxing tools, more of some maybe heavy nutrient therapy.
Okay.
And less kind of peptides there. We spoke about sulfur-rich containing foods helping with glutathione. Well, we can just provide glutathione via an infusion. You're bypassing the gut and getting that body's master antioxidant right into the cells. But methylated B vitamins. We also spoke earlier about the whole issue around MTHFR gene mutations.
Right.
Part of that process is you're basically activating B vitamins that support these detoxification pathways. So I think more on that side, I'm using IV nutrients to support the detox, whereas I'll use peptides a little bit more to support the mitochondrial cells and energy production. And then where they really shine is the third pillar, which is repair.
Aha, very good. Very good. So yeah, let's talk about repair. So we've done our detox and our body's gotten rid of a lot of the junk and are starting to operate the way it's supposed to. And then we've done the second pillar, right, where our mitochondrial process is working more efficiently, effectively. And then we're going to, so we've cleaned out the garage, right? And now we're ready to start repairing. So how do you typically help people repair? Obviously, peptides are a big piece of that puzzle. So let's talk about peptides and help us with the other areas within that pillar.
Yeah, so it usually in that repair process, especially when it applies to pain and pain pathways, you're not only working on building kind of new tissue, but in some cases actually calming an overactive immune system and then restoring function that's been lost for many months or even years. So some healing peptides that I think about would be more like BPC 157 or TB500. Those are the two ones that you'll see in here and talk about. And it's really a signal to the body to start rebuilding things like tendons, ligaments, nerves. BPC 157 was actually found in the kind of the lining of our guts. Your stomach, a very acidic, hostile environment that needs a lot of repair going on in that acidic environment. But we found that you kind of give that back to the body, you're going to accelerate healing and reduce inflammation, both in joints, tendons, ligaments, and even gut health. Whereas like on the flip side of TB500, that's going to more work on improving tissue elasticity and blood flow, new blood flow to areas of injury. Right? It's part of the reason why some of these injuries go from acute to chronic, right? They don't get your body's natural growth factors and healing factors delivered to that area of injury. And a peptide like TB500 helps facilitate that process.
Helps it get into the right area.
Yeah.
That's interesting. One of the things that you mentioned that I think is intriguing is the gut health related to some of the peptides. Do you do oral peptides where it actually goes into the stomach, or do you do typically in the injections and peptides that way to bypass the stomach?
Great question.
It's a combination of both, or how do you determine?
It's one that I hear quite commonly. It's a popular question, and I think it ultimately comes down to what are you trying to facilitate and heal?
Okay.
Right? So I think when patients ask me that question, gut health, I'm thinking about using something like BPC orally, right? I'll make a recommendation to use that product orally, especially with individuals with like inflammatory bowel disease, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis. I see it also have a fantastic role in what we call leaky gut. Where you can get this inflammation and the gapping of the intestinal cells. Whereas somebody with back to our knee pain injury, right? Yep. That might be better apt to do some subcutaneous injections near the area of injury. So ultimately, thinking through what are we actually going after to treat might determine the best route.
Yeah, that obviously makes very good sense. Obviously, so peptides are a really cool part of a very popular thing that people are doing and learning about. What about other therapies?
Hyperbaric oxygen, one of my other favorites. Popular, definitely in the biohacking community. You don't get much more natural than oxygen.
Say that again?
So you don't get much more natural than oxygen, right?
Yeah, right. Very, very true. Yeah.
And it's really just using physics in your favor with that oxygen. So it's using the oxygen to turbocharge these kind of repair processes, right? So
I literally was in the chamber this morning. So what do you do anything in the chamber? I try to occasionally breathe correctly, breathe in deep, but also just I end up being on my laptop and not even thinking about it. But should I be doing something in there more diligently while I'm in the chamber?
I think it's a fantastic time to explore some of those mind-body techniques. We talked earlier on about clearing kind of the psyche and clearing the mental kind of pathways, right? And tapping into that realm of healing, whether that be a mindfulness meditation practice, or to your point, should we do something like 4-7-8 breathing techniques, really kind of oxygen fully taking in, although technically the pressure of the chamber is really doing most of the magic. You're just kind of getting that oxygen, and then the pressure of that chamber is really forcing and driving that into the cells. Your body no longer needs your red blood cells in that chamber, right? It's actually, the pressure is just diffusing that in through the plasma into the tissues and into the cells, where you actually don't need kind of the circulatory system as much. But I still think breathing techniques, to your point, probably a better use of that time in the chamber than
laptop time.
Yes, yeah. Especially, it depends on what sort of chamber you're using too, Rob. I imagine you're doing a soft chamber.
Yeah, it's a soft. Actually, was going to be my next question. Is I don't remember how many atmospheric. How do you judge or rate a hyperbaric bed or chamber?
Most of your quote unquote soft chambers, so your canvas style chambers, will go up to 1.3, maybe 1.5 atmospheres of pressure, thinking that at sea level we have 1 atmosphere pushing down on us. Okay. So that's why you always hear in terms of talking about 1 point something or 2 atmospheres or 3 atmospheres. So it's an additional number of atmospheres being pushed down in addition to the 1 atmosphere sitting at sea level.
Okay.
So that's a little tech jargon. What are we talking about in terms of 1.5, right? It's another half atmosphere pressure being pushed down. But your hard style chambers are going to go closer to 2 to 3 atmospheres.
Awesome.
The science suggests that you're delivering more oxygen at those higher pressures. But I think the cool thing about hyperbarics is actually most of the magic at a cellular level happens when you come out of the chamber or during periods of normal oxygen. We call it kind of the hyperemic hypoxia paradox. It's actually during the period where you stop flooding the system, your body, with oxygen, where you're kicking off these cascades and pathways in the body to upregulate antioxidants.
Oh, awesome.
You're activating stem cells, right? So a fantastic regenerative tool within the body. Again, the body has its own innate ability to heal itself. You're just using oxygen to signal the release and migration of these stem cells to areas of injury. And that's something that's been shown to actually happen at higher levels of pressure. So individuals thinking about, hey, am I getting the benefits of stem cell activation? We may have to think that we need to be getting closer to the 1.8 to 4 atmospheres of pressure to elicit some of those responses.
Oh, interesting. I actually went to Mexico to do some treatments, and the facility I was at, it was a stem cell treatment center. So they were doing a lot of stem cell treatments on people, and they had this really cool hyperbaric chamber where it was like 6 people.
6 people in there. Yeah.
I was like, holy smokes, this thing's amazing. It was like I think a 2 atmosphere one. So that makes total sense. What you're saying is that in order for the stem cell treatments that they were doing for them to be effective, that the 2 chamber or the 2 atmosphere chamber was one that would help them more than a soft one, right?
Correct. And I'll tell my patients, you have to sometimes make compromises or don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? So if you're looking at patients who can't come in and do hyperbarics regularly, I would much rather them look into going to a facility close by that has a soft-sided chamber and be able to do more regularly, or there are even places that will allow you to rent the soft chambers and bring them into your house. Rob, I know a bit of your focus was how do you support people on cancer journeys, right?
Yeah.
So using a hyperbaric oxygen every day can be quite the ask for patients to go to a facility, spend an hour in the chamber, drive back home. And I think you can get a lot of accumulation of hours in the chamber. You may have to do it more in a soft chamber, right? You may have to build up more hours, but in my opinion, that's much better than doing 1 hour here, 1 hour next week, 1 hour the week thereafter. You may not be getting that cumulative. So I think soft chambers definitely have a place, and people shouldn't get overly concerned if it's a soft chamber or nothing. You're still going to get plenty of benefit in that soft chamber.
That's interesting, yeah, because it's like at least a 2-hour commitment every time I do that, because there's an hour, a half hour there, and an hour there in the chamber, and a half an hour back. It is a lot of effort, but at the same point, I'm working on the cumulative effect. But I'd love to figure out a way to get it in my house. I'll have to start doing some research on the ones that you can rent. I hadn't even thought of that. That's a great idea. So I have to dig into that. All right, so there's the hyperbaric chamber that you use. What else do you do from the repair perspective?
I think we talked a little bit about maybe the overactive immune system. So one tool that you'll commonly see functional and integrative practitioners use is something called low-dose naltrexone.
Okay.
Interestingly, thought process there where I know we spend a lot of time talking about, I tell my patients I'm not an anti-conventional medical doctor. Sometimes there's good tools in that conventional toolbox.
Right.
And you take a pharmaceutical agent like naltrexone, which at a higher dose has different properties, we find at very small doses, it can start to reset immune balance and lower nerve inflammation. So in these tiny doses, you get very big results.
Wow.
And they can even enhance endorphin release and pain tolerance. And then for those with autoimmune related pain, so let's say rheumatoid arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis, lupus, low-dose naltrexone, because its ability to modulate the immune system can be a fantastic tool. That's another one that I'll use commonly, depending on what we're trying to treat.
Very interesting. Yeah, I had not heard of that. It does make sense. I'm excited. Just what else do you use red light therapy, other tools that are obviously you do a lot of things depending upon the person, but we talked about those three things, and the repair one is super important. How about, do you do anything with exosomes or stem cells? Is that something that you can do as a practitioner? I don't know the laws and regulations in the US. How do those differ from stem cells?
Yeah, so stem cells, mostly what you can do with the stem cells is usually predominantly using your own stem cells. So this is where you talk about people drawing fat or drawing from bone marrow and processing and kind of extracting the stem cells there. Now, we're seeing the tide change. I think Florida, Utah are two states that recently have, quote, legalized or allowed medical professionals to use, in certain instances, umbilical cord derived blood from the umbilical cords to then extract stem cells there and use that as a way to deliver stem cell therapies.
Okay.
So those are the two most common. There are rules and regulations on what you can do with stem cells beyond that, which is why you see some people travel outside the country. But in the US, that's commonly how you'll see stem cell therapy approached. And exosomes you mentioned, I think right now you're most commonly seeing that used in the aesthetic medicine space, given rules and regulations or what you can or can't do with exosomes, which are nothing more than the way I describe them to my patients are little small microparticles or microvesicles of the stem cells themselves that contain the growth factors and the healing factors, one step down from stem cell therapy themselves. And then beneath that, you have PRP, platelet-rich plasma. So I lump that into the regenerative bucket of tools where you're taking somebody's blood, in this case now, and spinning that down to the layer of blood that contains all the growth factors and the healing factors, and then using that to inject back to an area of injury.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that makes total sense. That's fascinating. All the things that you can do to help the human body do what it should be doing naturally, right? If we didn't ruin it in the first place. But we're sure good at doing that, especially with our air being compromised and our food supply being so messed up, and our water even, right? So holy smokes, it's difficult to live a healthy life these days.
You can't live in a bubble, but you can definitely control what's inside that bubble. What I like to say. So
I like that. I like that approach a lot. So how do you try to help people with that? How do you recommend that they try to, obviously you don't want them to live in a bubble, and they're going to have to live in this crazy world that is a lot of things are compromised. How do you help people navigate that?
I will always recommend a bit of the 80-20 approach, right? So where in your life can we step back and take a look that you have the potential to have the most exposure, but you're also willing to make the biggest sacrifice? So, example, right? Easy thing could be how you store your food, right? Most people are okay with tossing out some plastic and buying some glass, right? It's not a big sacrifice or ask. Or I may ask some of my female patients, right? We need to start changing up makeup routines and whatnot. They're like, yeah, you're not getting rid of my favorite lip gloss. Or guys, you're not getting rid of my hair product, right? It's like, where are you willing to make those compromises and sacrifices are going to give you your biggest return, right? So a long time, I struggled myself personally finding a good quality yet effective deodorant.
Oh.
It's like, I can't go around smelling all day long, but I don't want to be putting aluminum under my armpits.
Mine's like chalk. It feels like I'm putting on a chalk every time. What have you found that's good?
Yeah. So like how I approach it, that 80-20 mentality. And then there's resources, right? So the Environmental Working Group, the same organization that puts together the Dirty Dozen and Clean 15, has something called skindeep.org,
Okay.
where you can actually go in and put in some of your personal care products and type that in. And it's going to give you a rating of that product. And it's going to tell you what potential toxins, whether that be a reproductive toxin, whether that be carcinogenic, whether that be an endocrine disruptor. So it'll even rate what's in there and tell you what to be on the lookout of, where that may be creating the most dysfunction within your body.
One of the things I wanted to ask you, just with your practice and the people that you're working with, what's the most common issue and problem that you're trying to help people with these days?
Yeah. You mentioned early on, when you look at the website, we see that we do a lot of different things. And
yes.
Back to that joke that I had that I'm not an anti-conventional medical doctor. So in addition to being board certified in integrative medicine, I'm also board certified in family medicine.
Oh, awesome.
So I'm true to my roots in that, where I work with a pretty diverse patient population, right?
Yeah,
so within my practice in a given week, I can be taking care of NFL athletes. I can be taking care of individuals on their cancer journey. I can be taking care of the mom with 2 kids who's stressed and trying to do all the right things and still feels like she can't move the needle on the scale. I can be working with the 50-year-old gentleman who just is feeling this constant brain fog and fatigue and wearing down and struggling with hormonal imbalances. But I'd say by and large, the people that come to Vive to seek out our expertise are usually high-performing individuals.
Okay.
These are individuals in their 40s, 50s, and 60s that have pushed hard. And perhaps to your point, like we weren't aware of what we were doing to our bodies, and now they're becoming more aware. And they want to undo some of this damage so they can continue to function and perform at high levels and optimally and enjoy the next 2, 3, 4 decades of their life. I work with many different people here at Vive, and then my team does as well. But I'd say that's our area of superpower.
Yeah, I love it. That would be fun to help with those different types of people, because you're going to see all different types of things. I know a number of the doctors I've been talking to have noticed that there's a lot more people coming in with reactions to the jabs and stuff that we have been getting. Do you see any of that in your practice? Do you see that as a problem with what you're doing?
Yeah, I still see a fair amount of that. That will be a common thing from an outside toxin. Another thing that I think is probably more pervasive than definitely the conventional medical world gives attention to is mycotoxins. So mold illness, mold toxicity. That's another one that I'll very commonly see. And I think as a result of the things that you mentioned, and as a result of environmental toxins and increased stress, autoimmune conditions are on the rise.
Okay.
So I see a lot of individuals, and that bleeds over into chronic pain syndromes. So if you have the immune system attacking joints or the back, it's going to lead to a lot of daily pain and dysfunction. So that's, I think, where I see some of that starting to bleed over as well, and things that we're seeing where maybe we didn't see as much of 2-3 decades ago.
Yeah, so just intriguing how things are happening. I love that you talked about even the simple things in the kitchen, right? To store your foods in glass rather than plastic. It's like those are the things that just in the last few years, my wife's been telling me forever, right? But I'm dumb. So I didn't think about stuff like that, right? So, oh my gosh. But it's you start looking you start doing research on the microplastics on our world and how much we actually consume. It's shocking. I said, wow, that's really bad for you. So doing those simple things, like you mentioned, they add up, right? They're so important that if you can start taking control of those things, it's really going to help your life holistically. The one thing we only touched on a little bit was the faith-based aspect, right? I'm a believer, and I believe that the mind-body-spirit connection is super, super important and powerful in people's health. How do you navigate that with people? Obviously, you try to help that detoxing, and part of that detoxing you mentioned was emotional and or spiritual as part of that. How do you navigate that with people?
It starts by approaching every individual with an open mind and meeting them where they are.
Yeah.
Some people may come in to the practice with a very strong faith, and others may not. And so you think being very open in how you ask and facilitate, exploring that with the patients and holding presence in that is really important. Because if you miss out on that piece with an individual where faith is a cornerstone, you're missing out on the potential for a powerful healing tool on their journey. Oh. So I think it just starts with creating that space and openness to ask those questions and facilitate it. And it's not that as a practitioner, I'm going to know how to help every person on that spiritual journey, right? So we're a very diverse country now, right? You never know what faiths are coming through, right? The practice. And so it's not just to say that I'm going to be an expert on every different faith that may come through these doors, but just providing that space, acknowledging that, and helping ask questions and facilitate maybe patients who have those faiths or are opening to exploring that. How can you turn to that and start to rely on that if you have it, or start to explore that if you don't?
Well, it makes sense. A strong believer in the mind is so powerful, and that your mind can control your body in ways that's just really unexpected. And so if you can tap into a person's spiritual beliefs, there's lots of spiritual things that can be healing, but even just the power of the mind, like regardless of your faith, if you have a strong mind and you can train your mind to do things, it can really have a physical impact on the body, which that's stuff I didn't believe a few years ago. Now I'm like, oh my gosh, it's amazing how incredibly powerful that part of our body is. And just having a good attitude and having a positive attitude and reducing stress and things like that have a physical ramification on the body. So I love that you look at that, right, as a person as a whole. And that's one of the things I so frustrated about our existing standard of care is the standard of care doesn't look at the person holistically like you are. And I just want to applaud you for what you do and how you're helping people holistically. It's just exciting to see people like yourselves and what you're doing to help the world. So what are your visions? What are you trying to accomplish? I know you've got an amazing practice, and it's in North Carolina, correct?
Charlotte, North Carolina. Yeah, I have patients that fly all over the country and the world. I have patients from Costa Rica that come in, California, Texas, all over, but it is Charlotte, North Carolina based. So
very good. So what are your plans in the future? What are you looking forward to the next few years and the next decade?
Yeah, I'm really not right now looking at exploring how can I extend the reach of Vive and invite more people to come experience what we do and then take that back home. Right? So a lot of these tools that we talked about, some need to be done in an office or like in your house, like a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. Not everyone can put a hyperbaric oxygen chamber in their house, but things like these, getting the right set of diagnostic tests so we understand what's happening at a cellular level, and then starting to build those care plans. Those can be done all over the country, right? So how we can start leveraging and working further with peptide therapies or advanced nutraceutical supplementation that are customized to these cellular pathways within everybody's individual body, I think is one area I'm leaning towards with the practice. And I'm excited about, still continue to be fascinated with the evolving world of peptide therapies, right? These little amino acid sequences that regulate different cellular pathways. I think we're just kind of starting to scratch the surface there, and really excited to see what will unfold in the coming years there.
Yeah, that's exciting. Just solutions that people are coming up with, right? And the ways to use them. And so it's neat that you're so advanced in doing and helping people with those types of issues. That's because I've heard of peptides, but if you were to explain a peptide, let's just say a person comes into your office and they've never heard of peptide therapy. How do you explain peptide therapy to someone who's never heard of it before?
Yeah, just as I briefly mentioned, which is a string of amino acids that regulate different cellular pathways. And there's different peptides that regulate different cellular pathways in the body.
And when you say a cellular pathway, give me an example of what is that? So a dumb person that walks into your office, and of course it wouldn't be me.
Yeah. I think we can all get our heads around that they've been around for so long. A peptide in our body that we first synthesized to re-inject and back into our body is insulin.
Oh,
That's an example of a peptide, right?
Okay.
Even glutathione that we talked about earlier, that's just 3 amino acids put together. In this case, insulin is a peptide that helps your body process blood sugar better. It helps take...
Almost everybody's heard of that, right?
Yeah, so that's an example of a peptide. Now, more peptides that people are familiar with that work on different pathways in the body are your glucagon-like 1 peptides, your semaglutide.
Okay.
Ones that kind of help your body's metabolism function better, among other things, but that helps your body process the body fats and help your body process blood sugar and work on hormones that regulate appetite. One of the peptides we talked about earlier as well, BPC-157. That works on inflammation, injury, tissue repair pathways within the body. Right. One we didn't get to was thymosin alpha-1, TA1, one that helps immune system function and modulation of the immune system. So when I talk about cellular pathways, it's what are these different areas, right? So is it circadian rhythm function, right? Is it inflammation? Is it metabolism? So there's all sorts of peptides that work on those different areas.
Yeah, that's super cool stuff. I'm excited to try to get people to know more about you. What's the best way for them to find your facility, as well as just more information about you, and how can they share that information?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about the Biogenesis Method. If the viewers are interested in diving more into that, you can find that on our methodology or method page on the website. And you can kind of see the whole kind of breakdown of how I think about optimizing cellular health from that lens. We also have a great kind of assessment. What's your cellular aging blind spot? Is another great tool. And then if you're just ready to dive in, the Get Started page on our website allows you to book a free discovery call. Wherever you are in your journey, wanting to learn a little bit more, or where specifically maybe holding you up on your cellular pathway being blocked, or just want to have a conversation with one of our wellness experts here at Vive, happy to kind of explore that.
Awesome. And then I'll have the links to your website and phone numbers to make sure people can get access to you. One of the questions that I wanted to ask earlier that I'd forgotten was just with the advent of AI, right? AI is a really hot topic on a lot of things. How do you see it in what you do in your practice? Are you using AI? Do you envision using AI? Where are you on that spectrum?
The only place I personally use AI sometimes with my new patient intakes, where I'm leveraging AI to help scribe and keep track of notes and make sure that I can truly stay focused in on the conversation. I'm perceivingly on outward, I'm a very low tech but high tech practice, right? We have all these fancy tools like hyperbaric oxygen chambers and lasers, but I'm old school in the sense of I believe in having real conversations with patients, eye to eye, ear to ear, with no computers pulled up with you get that doctor who's typing, listening to you. That's really the main area I leverage AI, is just allowing it to help take notes and capture the important details of our conversation so I can focus on the conversation with the patient.
Yeah, that's awesome. 'Cause I literally was at my practitioner's office this last week, and that's one of the things that he's using as well that really helped him, because he can focus so much more on having that interaction. And people, the way that they interact, they may tell you something, but based upon their physical body and or the way that they said it, you may need to dig a little bit more. And if you're busy writing notes down, you're not getting those cues that you can get right in the human body and how they're reacting. So I think that's so awesome that you're using the tools and they're great at that, right? It's like they're great at taking information and summarizing it and giving you back results, and then you can use that for future purposes. But you're not using it any other way at the moment. Anything you see that you think has promise from an AI perspective?
Yeah, the place that I'm leveraging that, it was with some companies. Theriome is a metabolomics company that I work with on diagnostics.
I haven't heard of that before. What is that?
Yeah, you're looking at, again, we go back to these cellular pathways, right? Okay. You're looking at upstream markers that signal dysfunction within the body before you're ever looking at an A1C saying your blood sugar's off. And they're looking at upstream little small markers within the body that says, hey, your body's having a hard time with insulin and blood sugar, not just, oh, your blood sugar is elevated. And so they do something called digital twinning, where they'll actually use AI and say, okay, let's take what your body looks like and let's apply some treatment models and see how that would lead to the most optimal outcome. So I think that's a cool tool that I have been using beyond basic note taking, if you will, in terms of, I think what you're getting at is like how you're using AI to change management. and treatment of patients. That's probably the one area I'm using it at the most.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. I love technology. I love the human body. So I'm myself trying to use it in all different types of ways to help me in my business and what I do. And it's just intriguing because the medical field it's a hot topic because there's so much bad that you can, and there's so much bad information that it's trained on whatever information is out there. So a lot of times the results you're getting are your garbage in, garbage out. Right. It makes sense of what you're doing. But anyway, that was just a question I had. Anything else that you'd like to talk about that we didn't mention today?
I think we covered a lot of ground here, Rob. Right? We covered a lot of ground from the body's innate ability to heal itself to how you do that at a cellular level and some kind of 3 key areas to do that. Some biohacking tools we uncovered. Yeah. So we had a pretty whirlwind conversation here.
Yeah, I appreciate everything that you've done. It's just super exciting to have you here. I'm really blessed that you took the time to spend with us, and I'm excited to get people have access to your information. And then with my Biohackingville community, I'm putting together resources of practitioners and people to go to. So I would love to get your permission to put your location and your center and you as a hot resource that people should connect with. And so I'll make sure that we have it in the show notes for the podcast, but then if you go to biohackingville.com, I'll have resources and I'll have Dr. Haas's all his contact information there and what he does, and you can click on it. But it sounds like it's an amazing thing. Go to his website and check it out and look at the questionnaire, look at the quiz and things that he has there for you to understand what he can do to help you. It's just, he's got amazing resources. And hey, North Carolina or South Carolina, right?
North Carolina, on the border, but
Charlotte,
North Carolina.
Charlotte, there we go. Charlotte was the word I was missing. Sorry. Get to Charlotte and go see Dr. Will Haas. I appreciate that. So thanks, Doc. Appreciate you being on the show.
All right.
All right. Take care. Remember, if you have air in your lungs today, God has a plan for your life. Believe, biohack, become.
Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Join the community and get the show notes at biohackingville.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at Biohackingville. Until next time, believe, biohack, become.